All right, today I'm going to go over just a couple of real quick and easy tests we can do on the charging and starting system on a vehicle using the Pico scope. You can see the equipment I have laid out on the table. First of all, I do have a Pico scope here. I've got the USB cable that goes with the Pico scope. One side note, always use the blue cable that comes with the Pico scope when you're using one. I've got an infrared temp gun. I've got two amp clamps on the table here. I have the TA388, and this is a large amp clamp. So this is mainly for your starting and charging system tests. This is designed to go around the battery cable. And I've also got a low amp clamp. This is the TA473. And again, this has multiple uses for Pico, but I am going to use this for the parasitic load. One note though, this does not fit around all battery cables. So there are alternate methods to choose if this does not fit around the battery cable. But today I've got a vehicle that I'm actually going to work on today. And I've also got a set of jumper leads, test leads that come with the Pico scope. So the vehicle that I've got today, just an older Chevy Malibu. Had a little problem starting the other day, charged the battery on it. So I just want to check the battery on it, see if it's in good condition, and I want to see if it's got a parasitic load. So I guess let me go ahead and let's get everything hooked up here. Just going to take the Pico scope, hook it into the side of the laptop. And from there, I'm going to go into the Pico scope software. Now, something you should know here, there's actually two separate Pico scope softwares. The one right at the top here, this is called Pico Diagnostics. That's where you're going to find your battery test, your NVH test, and anything with dealing with pressure transducers you're going to find in Pico Diagnostics. That's the icon at the top. The icon below is Pico 7 automotive scope. That's where you're going to actually find the parasitic load test and just a multitude of other tests you can do with a Pico scope. But I'm just going to concentrate on two of them today here. So I guess first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to choose Pico Diagnostics. And that's going to bring me to this screen right here. Over in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to go to Battery Test. All right. Now, I do have to fill in some information here about the battery that we're working with. Right down in the lower corner here. First of all, a little bit of information about the battery. Yes, it's a 12-volt system. This happens to be a lead-acid battery. It does want to know the temperature. Let me grab a temperature gun here, and I'm going to go check the temperature of the battery. And right now the battery is 85 degrees. Nice warm day in the shop here. I'm going to go ahead and go up to 85 degrees for the battery. All right. Cold cranking amps. This vehicle has a 540 cold cranking amp battery. I'm just going to modify this here. All right, so we have our information entered in about the actual battery itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my connections. A couple of the connections we're going to make is one, I do need these smaller test leads. That's going to go into channel A, which is also the blue channel right here. That's just positive and negative for the battery. And I'm also going to be using the large amp clamp for this test. That's going to go into channel B. All right. So let's go over to the vehicle here. And I did print off the instructions that Pico sends with this kit. They want the 2 test leads hooked to the battery, positive and negative. And they want the large amp clamp around the positive battery cable. One note to keep in mind, you do want the arrow facing away from the battery. Now, Pico instructions say to put it around the positive. You can put it around the negative and it works just fine, but I'm gonna follow what Pico says, and I'm gonna go around the positive here. Again, the arrow is facing away from the battery. Make sure you're going around all of the battery cables. All right, so the vehicle's all hooked up. So let's go back over to the screen. And down in the lower left-hand corner, you're gonna see a button that says Start. I'm gonna choose Start and then follow the instructions on the screen. So right there's the Start button. And it says, please start the engine. And that's it. Our test is complete. Now let's go look at our test results here. So basically our battery is in good condition. It does need a recharge. Again, the initial voltage was 12.3 volts. Yes, the battery was low to start with. See, maximum current, 651 amps right at the start of the cranking. Battery condition, basically good, but it needs a recharge. All right, so our test is complete and this battery actually passes. Now, another thing I do like about the Pico scope versus some other types of battery testers is you can actually print these results. So let me show you that. If you go right up here at the top, you can hit print. And what that's going to give you going to give you a report like this, just in case you need to print a report off, just for documentation. This is from a previous vehicle I did. So that's one nice thing about the Pico scope, using it for a battery test. All right, so that's it for a battery test. Next up is going to be a parasitic load test. Okay, next thing I'm going to be doing on this vehicle here, I'm going to be doing a parasitic load test using also the Pico scope. What I did here is I disconnected the large amp clamp from the Pico scope, and now I'm going to connect the low amp clamp to the Pico scope. And again, this is the TA 473 low amp clamp. And now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hook it around the negative terminal of the battery. The reason I'm using the negative right now is because the positive terminal is very large. I can't quite make it fit around there. And plus, I got a little bit smaller of a clamp on the negative side. Now, when I hook this in, I do have an arrow on my amp clamp. I have to pay attention to that arrow because that arrow is going to indicate current flow. Now, if you kind of think of current flow, I'm going to flow conventional flow. I'm going to flow out of the positive, through the system, back into the negative. So in this case, I want my arrow pointing to the battery, arrow pointing towards the battery. And again, whenever you're using an amp clamp, make sure that it clamps and closes completely around the cable, or else it will not read properly. All right, got that all set. Now I'm going to choose Pico Automotive. So right on the screen there's Pico 7 Automotive. I'm going to choose that. And now when I use the Pico 7 software, it automatically comes up with this guided tests. And I'm going to choose starting and charging. I'm going to choose charging. And I'm going to go down here and choose parasitic battery drain. Now, I'm going to have two selections here. One is load setting files. What that does is it just automatically loads the software, all your predetermined readings for your test instruments, and it just makes the test. I like to choose this first, the guide and settings file. What the guide and settings file is going to do, it's actually going to give you a diagram of how to make your hookup. So there's how we just made our hookup. It's going to give you information on how to perform the test. Again, anytime I use the Pico scope, I just like to familiarize myself with it, read through the instructions so that I know what I'm doing. And it also gives us kind of a sample waveform. And also gives us some other notes. So I'm just going to close this out now. All right. Now, I'm all hooked up on the vehicle. So all I got to do is go up here to the top left-hand corner, up where it says stopped. It says stopped right there. I'm going to click on that. And now the test is actually running. Now the test is running. And again, we're just barely getting a software trace over there. I'm just going to let this vehicle sit maybe 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending on when I get back to it. And then I'm going to analyze my results from this test. Okay, we're back on the Chevy Malibu here. And it's been just a little over 30 minutes since we started our parasitic load test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the test and then look up my results. So I'm going to go up in the upper left-hand corner here and hit stop. All right. And you notice when I stopped it that the waveform kind of cleans itself up a little bit. So what happens is when you stop the test on the parasitic load test, the software actually filters it. So that's why it looks just a little bit different after you stop it. Now, something I'm going to draw your attention to is the waveform for the current flow dipped right there and then continued on. So I want to measure that. So if you go over to the upper right hand corner, there's a cursor over here. You can drag this cursor down and line it up with your waveform and actually get a measurement. So I'm on the red tracer. The red represents current. You can actually see as soon as I shut the vehicle off, I had about 302 milliamps. Of course, we know that that's too much. Now, how long was that for? I can also take this cursor here, right to there, and that actually tells me it was 302 milliamps for 42 seconds. All right, so what happened after that? Well, after that, we dropped down to, right there, we dropped down to 119 milliamps. All right, and that was drawing that amount for, let me drag this cursor over, right about 19 minutes and 30 seconds. We had a 119 milliamp current draw. After that, drag this down here. Our current draw actually dropped down to 40.49 milliamps. Now again, the old rule of thumb for parasitic loads, 50 milliamps and under is good. All right, we are under that 50 milliamps. But again, you want to get specific with your vehicle. Some vehicles might be slightly more, some vehicles might be less. The amount of time that it takes also varies amongst vehicles. Some vehicles might go to sleep in 10 minutes. Some vehicles might actually take the 30 minutes like our vehicle took, or some might be even longer yet. Again, get specific with your service information, but I'm pretty satisfied here that this vehicle does not have any excessive current flow when it's shut off. We're down to 40 milliamps. And you know what? If I let it go even longer, it might even go down a little bit more, but I'm satisfied where I'm at. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stop the test right here. So, all right, so that's how to do a parasitic load test using the Pico scope.